In 5 years' time, Uganda could become one of Africa's largest oil producers. From an economy largely dependent on agriculture and the domestic market, Uganda's transition to one of the top 50 global oil exporters presents an exciting opportunity for the nation.
The point this evening is to discuss the subject, whether the oil resource that we have in this country presents us an opportunity for this country. And I have 10 minutes, Chairperson. I would like to start my presentation from this story in the Economist magazine of 2000, May 2000, and the story ran, it was Hopeless Africa. Hopeless Africa, a story written by an African American, and he looked at the African continent, and to him, Africa was a hopeless continent, and he was lucky to have escaped through, of course, his ancestors to the US, and looking back at the genocide and the chaos in Africa, he was safe in America, so hopeless Africa. The complete map of Africa shows a continent at war against itself or with itself. And of course, that is what has compelled most people to look at whether actually this oil resource will present a present Uganda or a gas. The story for most African oil producing countries and most other third world countries in the world is a mixed bag of success and failure. And people want ask, is it possible that Uganda will have a different story? And I will actually try to present two scenarios. I think Uganda can choose two paths. One, it can choose to go the path of a caste, or it can choose the path of a president. And we have the opportunity now that we are in the process of developing a policy and legal regime in this country. And depending on how we manage to put in place a legal regime, a policy regime will actually determine whether actually oil becomes a gas or a blessing for this country. If you look at most oil producing countries, a very quick look at them, Angola, Nigeria, Gabon, and others, it shows a picture where actually oil has actually generated a lot of conflict, and most countries have not actually benefited. In most countries, oil has reversed democracies, and of course, a case in point is Nigeria and others. All these oil-rich countries have failed, stagnated, and corrupted democracies. In Angola, just imagine from a 20-plus conflict between UNITA and MPLA. In Nigeria, the Niger Delta problem. So the story really has been very depressing. And people talk about the oil, the Dutch disease. And the Dutch disease basically says that if you have abundant natural resources, and especially the oil, then as a country you suffer the possibility of lack of innovation, technological innovation, because you spend most of your time in relaxing, enjoying, and the case in point is Gabon, where after exploiting oil for many years, and actually they had put in place a mechanism for investing, an intergenerational mechanism, and actually 10 years in Gabon oil will be exhausted, and they checked actually on the offshore account, they had deposited only $2, but oil was running out. But what was the situation in Gabon? They had enjoyed most of the money. Their agriculture had died. They had even lost the technology of how to farm. They had spent most of the money on importing food from South Africa or wines from France. And of course, the population was enjoying on music and that kind of thing. So what would happen when oil actually goes? So at the time that oil ends, the country is unable to survive. So is it possible that Uganda actually can avoid those experiences and put in place a regime that actually can invest in sustainable development? In the interest of time, this is what I propose. I propose that urgently the government of Uganda should put in place a legal regime that ensures transparency and accountability, and it's on the basis of transparency and accountability in the management of of the oil resources that actually this country can reap lasting wealth. Secondly, I suggest that legal regime should be futuristic and should be intergenerational in nature. Intergenerational in the sense that the legal regime should cater for the current generation, but also for the interests of the future generation. Thirdly, that the legal regime should be nationalistic and regionalistic. There is a tendency. I was in Nairobi and I just returned yesterday. Ford Foundation was celebrating 15 years of work in East Africa. But most people in Kenya just focused on Kenya. And then I wonder, when regional integration, when you think that by 2013 this will be one country, and you have a country that is actually preparing for elections that could have regional implications, the whole focus of the debate and the planning is on Kenya. I think that is not good for this country. So as we actually need our installation should cater for the country, but also should have a regional perspective that actually we are likely to be one country, and so the wealth should be also regionalistic in nature. But also the legal regime should be equitable and distributive to address the conflict. This country is just emerged from conflict. If you look at the conflict map of Uganda, it's a country that has been at war all over the place. Northern Uganda, Eastern Uganda, Western Uganda, where ADF still, of course, is a menace. In Bunyoro, where there's this agitation. So the legal regime must take care that must ensure that the resources are well distributed to ensure equity, to ensure regional development, to avoid future conflicts. So, in terms of what should the citizens and civil society do? I think citizens should remain vigilant. I think, of course, I've listened to the leaders, especially the president himself, when he says, trust us. We'll put in place a legal regime, a policy regime that will bring about lasting wealth. My advice to Ugandans, with all due respect, is that never trust an individual, never even trust a regime. Trust institutions, and these are trust institutions, trust the legal mechanisms, trust the policies, but also the vigilance of the population, because the greatest resource for any country is its citizens. So the citizens need to remain vigilant and make sure that actually the legal regime is for people and not pro-government or pro-regime. Secondly, they must continue to demand too much from the government. But also as a caution, the citizens should not put too much expectation in the oil. There has been a lot of expectation from the citizens that actually we may look the other side. Oil is not the answer. Oil is a non-renewable resource. It will get finished, and this country will remain. Actually, we are better off without this regime. Or rather, without the oil resources. We are better off. Countries that actually have natural resource scarcity have the potential to innovate technologically. But those that have huge resources, they're in Congo. Why is Congo suffering? The Dutch disease, the honeybee kind of syndrome. Congo will remain stuck as long as it has those resources that are huge and in different types. So my caution to citizens, do not put much interest in this resource. To the legal regime, demand the government, of course, to be accountable, to invest in an intergenerational gap, so that fund, so that our future generations can continue, can also benefit, but also invest in investing infrastructure, the road infrastructure, the rail infrastructure, and all other infrastructure, so that we can actually then contribute to the future. What should the development partners do? As actually Uganda as the dollar money begin to fall from oil, the government of Uganda is likely to be actually to face of dollar dependence. Well, that is good news for Ugandans. Of course, we don't want to continue begging, but it may also spell something bad for the country, because it also means that the international community may not move around the whole governance of this oil regime, because there is no money. Because you see, the donor money helps the international community to move around. But now you'll be told of that you don't have money here. what should they do in that situation? Let me, my advice is this. We are emerging democracies, young and fragile. It would be dangerous and stupid for the international community to look the other side because there is no money here. Because these regimes that are emerging and are fragile have a possibility of reversal, democratic reversals because of money and corruption that always come with actually the oil money. So the international community must be vigilant to continue pressing the regime. Governments like ours and other governments, Madagascar has discovered its oil, Kenya has, Tanzania has gas, Rwanda they are trying. There is a low place for oil exploration, but the international community must be vigilant through the institutions that actually allow them to come to the international law, the United Nations and others, to make good pressure on these regimes to be transparent. Otherwise, you'll have a Gaddafi or Libya scenario, and how does it end? In a state collapse and confusion that actually affects or threatens the international peace and security. What should the parliament do? And I'm looking at the parliamentarians who are here, and some of the prospective parliamentarians. Yes. I think Parliament, first of all, I want to congratulate the 9th Parliament for the work well done so far. Can we give them the clap? I think the 9th Parliament has performed well than we expected. We thought it was going to be a rubber stamp parliament. They have lived, they have actually defeated that one. But they need to remain vigilant. The hope, because you are the representative of the people if you are here, or some of you will become members of parliament. So parliament must help us put in place a very good legal regime, but must also help in the policy implementation, because we have the oil and gas policy. All the implementation of even the legal regime that will be put in place and the oil regime is going to be very paramount. And you must remain independent. And that's why some of us are looking at the future of this country. We think that it's important to have actually a bicameral parliament. We think, and I'll discuss with you more, but is it possible that we can have 2 chambers of parliament, and the second chamber, the Senate, basically is to empower this, the lower one, to stand the test of time, because the lower one can easily be assaulted by the executive. So Parliament must continue to provide strong oversight over the executive, because without a strong and independent Parliament, and with over-concentration of power in the executive, then everything can be reversed. I want to thank you.